Well, that is exactly how you get a win in the Champions League. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal Raw Reaction Show, joining you the morning after the evening of glory before, in which Arsenal won 3-1 in the San Siro in the Champions League. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It's going to be quite a quick reaction show today. I'm traveling home from Milan today. Of course, we've got to get to the airport. I've got a flight to catch, so there's no slides, I'm afraid. It's just me chatting, waffling, and then taking some questions from the chat box. So that's not your bag, which it probably should be, because that's pretty much how we do it anyway. And if PowerPoints are the thing that's keeping you here, okay, but that's a bit of a weird thing. So I'm glad that you will stick with me, hopefully, over the course of the next 20 to 30 minutes or so as we go through yesterday evening's events and really look back and enjoy, I think, one of the results of the season so far. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box this morning. We've got Jeffrey, we've got Sid, we've got Prince, we've got Sport and Claire, we've got Errol and Paul. Good to see Martin in the chat box with Maximius, Grantley Poos, Rob, Barry, Jamster. We've got Gary and Mike and Carl and Z. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. If you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show, that would be greatly appreciated. So let's not waste any more time. Let's kick off the discussion this morning in the chat box and around yesterday's game. Arsenal 3, Inter 1 in Milan. I mean, that is... I had zero expectations for this game because my energy, my feeling, my confidence, and everything that I'm thinking about this week is on Sunday. The Manchester United game for me is the most important game that I am thinking about, considering and looking at as the importance, if you like, of this week. That is what I am most keen on Arsenal getting right. And I said to you yesterday, I think I said the same before, I was like, I don't really care. Well, Arsenal made me care. Arsenal made me care about this result because I actually think now we've won this game, and we've won so well. And we won so well after making 7 changes from the team that drew against Nottingham Forest, resting a lot of players, allowing some to stay kind of fit and ready for the game at the weekend. I feel as though this could be a really big moment. I actually think that this could be a really big kind of confidence boost for the team and gives Mikel Arteta a lot to think about. And also, there are some individual performances as well that we need to talk about that I think could have a really good knock-on effect for the course of the rest of this season, not just, of course, in the Champions League, but the Premier League and maybe the cup competitions as well. I want to start with the headline act. I think there is only really one person to start with. You all know who that is. There's a couple of others that I have to talk about as well because I was so impressed with them, but the headline is no doubt Gabriel Jesus is back. The Brazilian was fantastic in his poaching nature, and we've talked at length for many years about how we have wanted Gabriel Jesus to be better at finishing, to be better in the final third, to be better in the 6-yard box, have the instincts of a striker and the execution of one, and that's always kind of fallen a little bit short. Consistency, regularity in the team, injuries blocking him, all of these things have kind of stopped Gabriel Jesus from elevating himself and his own profile in this Arsenal side to the level that we want. But last night, what a great performance from him. Not just the finishes. I thought his link-up was good. I thought the way he played was good. I thought the way he battled was good. His duels were well won. All of these elements of his game were absolutely brilliant. So from a personal point of view, absolutely delighted with Gabriel Jesus scoring twice. I think there's no question in my mind that he should be the starting centre forward at the weekend against Manchester United. I think he's earned that place. I think he's earned that right based upon this performance, and he should be able to take that forward. I've been critical of Arteta not giving players like Madueke against Bruges the opportunity to run with their form, to take that form into the next game. I really, really, really would like to see Gabriel Jesus starting at the weekend. And to get some of your thoughts as well, yes, it seems a lot of you were guessing Jesus is exactly who the headline act of the game. Nifty Legend says, turned into R9 in the San Siro. Van Persie's left boot says Gabriel Jesus needs to start against United with Gyökeres subbed in later. That seems to work best. Yeah, Gyökeres coming on later in the game. It was one of the weirdest goals. Like, it's a good finish in a way. In some ways, I think Sommer should probably save it. But it was strange. Like, the ball from Martinelli is gorgeous. Outside of the boot, ping round the corner. Gyökeres runs through. Saka there as well. And Gyökeres tries to feed Saka. The pass is all wrong. It's too hard, and it's like behind Saka. But Saka's touch then kind of sets up Gyökeres to take the shot. And Sommer gets a hand to it, but not a strong hand, and it kind of just flaps through his hand and into the back of the net. Really big goal for him. Really important goal for Victor Gyökeres. Really glad he's got that goal, because anything that's going to help his confidence is good for us. So absolutely glad that he's got that goal, and it was important to see him. And you could see that in his celebration. You could see how joyous he was, how relieved he was to get that goal. So yeah, that was really important. Gary says Jesus' hold-up play was on point last night. Mark says Jesus looks like he's a newfound inspiration and tenacity. I'm so pleased that he does not want to leave, even as I think Gyökeres is finding his footing. Senki says, was it a late night? It was a late night, not because of any kind of hitting the bars or anything like that. It was just, we got San Siro is kind of far outside, like the centre of Milan. My hotel's like halfway between the two. It's about a 40-minute walk or so from the stadium. But there are trams that you can get to the stadium. You'll see in my match day vlog that I'll be putting up a little bit later on today around kind of the whole trip in itself. But yeah, you can get like a 10-minute tram, but they don't run very often. They're not very reliable. And after the game, even though they're meant to run later, they just weren't really running. There was a lot of fans waiting for one tram, and they aren't big. They're only like 2-3 carriages long. And so we ended up walking back after the press conference. So I didn't get in until about 1 o'clock. So yeah, I am looking tired, and I have good reasons for looking tired as well. Dubplate says Jesus was excellent. Definitely need a big shout to Gyökeres after all the criticism though as well. Absolutely. Danny says, how did Ezra perform? We'll talk about Ezra and Ødegaard, because of the criticism that I've got, Ezra was probably Arsenal's quietest player, and was probably it was a shame, because you see players, and we're going to talk about some others that took their opportunities. Ezra didn't take his opportunity last night, which was gutting. I really wanted him to. I really wanted him to start, and I really wanted him to have a really good game. But Arsenal were a lot more open. Ezra didn't have the greatest of performances, and I think it was quite telling. You know, we've been quite critical of Ødegaard in recent weeks, but I think his absence was certainly felt in the midfield as well. So, yeah, but we'll come on to that. The next player I have to give a shout out to is Cristhian Mosquera. Cristhian Mosquera. What a player we've got. What an incredible player Arsenal have signed for nothing, for peanuts. Like, we have signed him for absolutely nothing. He is an incredibly impressive defender. The moment where Inter Milan had that 2-on-1 situation, I think it was Susic running down the left, I think it was Thuram running down the right. Mosquera's on his own. We've turned over possession. There was a lot of turnovers in possession, and part of that, I think, was the midfield structure. We were so open. Ezra didn't help with that. I didn't think Marino particularly helped with that either, because he's recovered. I think now, if I'm starting Marino, I'm either starting him as a 6 to kind of like, if you're going to play defensive midfield, have him further back so he doesn't have to chase back as far, or play him as the 10. Play him in the middle. I'm not sure if that gets the best from Mikel Marino, even that was kind of the role that he was brought in to do. But we were so open at times, and Mosquera did absolutely fantastically to deal with that situation that was a 2-on-1. He kind of anticipates the run of Thuram on his left, and then stays close enough to Susic, who's running towards goal, who, by the way, scored a brilliant goal himself. What a finish that was. He anticipates the movement, forces the pass, and then gets enough distraction onto Thuram to stop a shot directly at goal. But outside of that, even, he was great. You know, his distribution was good, his pace was good, his defensive awareness was good, his anticipation was excellent. We've got a hell of a defender there in Mosquera. What a player he looks to be. And he gives Arsenal and Arteta and Saliba and Gabriel, you know, respite, options, reprieve, rotation. He gives Arsenal a lot, does Cristhian Mosquera. So, Really, really impressive performance from him. He wasn't the only defender I was impressed by, and I'm so happy for Myles Lewis-Skelly. Myles Lewis-Skelly had a brilliant performance, a really encouraging, I think a touchstone moment maybe in his season. Myles Lewis-Skelly, he was strong, he was defensively secure, he was good in his passing, he helped in the build-up for the first goal. There was a brilliant moment where I think it was Barella's kind of with the ball in the corner. He takes that touch. Myles Lewis-Skelly then just shoves him out the way. Arteta's straight away clapping him. There's a great video of Arteta's kind of reaction to it. You don't see him clapping him. You see kind of the aftermath of him clapping. But Myles Lewis-Skelly was great. Myles Lewis-Skelly was absolutely fantastic. So, and I'm absolutely delighted. I'm delighted that he was so good because he's had a really challenging season, a really, really, really challenging season. And he's had some really poor performances. I mean, we'll be blunt about it. He's had some poor performances. You know, he's been poor in a lot of games this season. And in the Champions League, you know, against Bayern Munich, he was ripped apart by Carl and rightfully taken off. And it wasn't a surprise that Arsenal went on to win the game with Calafiori being there. And we are missing Calafiori and we are missing Hincapié as well. But Lewis-Skelly stepped up and did fantastically well. A couple of other really good challenges down the left-hand side. There's one where he basically stopped a shot on target, I think from Luis Enrique. So, yeah, really happy with Myles Lewis-Skelly's performance. So they were kind of the highlights for me. Zubimendi had a little bit of kind of an up-and-down game. There are a couple of big mistakes that Zubimendi made really out of character for him. But then did some really good stuff with his distribution, tracking back and turnovers. So it kind of balanced out in the end. But yeah, difficult performance, I thought, in the first half in particular from Zubi, who gave the ball away crazily in a couple of situations. Saka, I thought, was bright, you know, should have scored, you know, set up by Gabriel Jesus. Bastoni makes a great challenge, but I think he should be taking that shot first time rather than kind of doing the little feint first because it gives Bastoni the opportunity to get back and get his foot in. Saka should have taken that shot first time and buried it. So, but overall, I thought Saka was good. He was creative. He was dangerous. He was causing so many problems for Inter's backline. So very happy indeed in the end with that result. But overall, the midfield was a bit of a problem. It was my only real criticism of the structure. The midfield was a bit of a problem. But I'm having this kind of internal debate with myself about how I feel about the midfield, how I feel about Eza, how I feel about Ødegaard not being there. And the reason why I'm having this internal kind of debate about it is that I think we've looked too safe. We've looked too safe in recent weeks. We've looked unimaginative, uninspiring, too vanilla in midfield. And while we don't look like we're going to concede, and we don't look like that other teams are going to threaten us, and we don't look like we're going to score many goals because of how that midfield is structured, is the trade-off of a little midfield security the reason why we also looked more threatening? The reason why we looked more dangerous? The reason why we were more proactive in our attacks? The reason why we were able on multiple occasions to get in behind. And that's still what I need to work out. I need to rewatch the game. I need to look a little bit more at the match. But there's this kind of trade-off we've got at the moment with domination, control. It's got us to where we are, top of the league. Equally, I'm also in a kind of mindset that there's something in, I think, the openness that allowed Inter to attack us also allowed us to get in behind them. And it's this kind of like game of chess where like you allow the opposition a little bit more leash and that then gives you more space and it gives you more opportunities to then be able to attack the opponent. So Inter Milan aren't a side that are going to sit back in their own box like we saw from Forest and so many other teams. You know, they're a team that needed points. They're a team that were going to attack us. So probably that also lent into it. So I guess the best example that we've got so far is when Ødegaard isn't starting is the Portsmouth game. Portsmouth had nothing to lose, though, in that game. They attacked Arsenal. They took the lead against Arsenal. Again, they kind of had reason to go for it. It was a cup game, not a league game, so they weren't looking to fight for any kind of draw or point or anything like that. So, yeah, it's hard. It's a really hard game to analyse in terms of kind of what we're getting from that midfield. But those that were quite quick to say, oh, look, Odegaard drops out, Eza comes in, we win against Inter. I'm sorry, but that's not really how the game played out, and that's not really how I analysed it at all. We looked a lot more vulnerable. We looked more risk-taking, but that didn't really come about because of Eze. Like, Eze wasn't really involved in too many attacks. He did have one of those opportunities to score in the second half. It was kind of a tame shot. He did take the pass from Zubimendi and played the ball into Lewis-Skelly in the end that led to the first goal. But he was oddly kind of out of the game for a game that was so open. I was kind of surprised at just how absent Eze was from so much of the attacks, even though the game was so open. So, yeah, it was a really strange game for Eze. It was a really strange game. Now, I think in part you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's not played too many games. He hasn't got form yet. He's still building up that momentum, and I think players need to be allowed to play up. But he was probably our worst player. Like, I mean, if we're being very blunt and honest about it, Eze was probably our worst player. And I don't mean worst. I think he was bad. He was just our least effective player. That's probably the most kindest and accurate way to describe Eze's performance. He was the least effective player, I think, for Arsenal on the day, which some might say is harsh, but I think that is just the reality of the game. But he was nowhere near as bad as Odegaard was against Forest, that's for sure. But he hasn't done enough in this game for me to go, yeah, take Odegaard out against United, play Eze. So that, I think, is where I'm kind of at. But to be fair, to Eze, I want him on the left. I don't want him in the middle. I don't think we get the most from Eze, him being in the middle. I think that exposes his weaknesses a lot more. And I think I'd rather protect him by playing him on the left, but making sure that we are tactically set up to know that there are going to be some shortcomings on our left-hand side defensively if he starts there. So he comes off, Marino pushes up, Rice comes on, control restored. We looked more solid. We looked better defensively when Inter did attack us. And obviously Victor Gyökeres comes on, scores a great goal. And we've taken 3 points again. 7 games, 7 wins. Happy days. I could not be happier. I could not be happier. I could be a little bit happier. And that's if when I got home, I didn't spend a few minutes scrolling through my YouTube trying to find the highlights before I then realized I needed something to be able to watch the TNT Sports highlights. And I should have really, I don't know how I didn't, but I should have really remembered quicker. And then I would have got to bed slightly earlier after watching the highlights. And that thing that gave me the ability to be able to watch those highlights was NordVPN. And if you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2-year plan. That's nordvpn.com/Gooner. Go to the website, go and get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2-year plan. Shield your data from snoopers and criminals. Change your geo-digital location, just like I did last night while sitting here in my Milanese hotel. Head over to the UK digitally, watch those highlights. Happy days. NordVPN.com/Gooner. Get yourself that 30-day money-back guarantee deal. If you're not happy with the service for whatever reason, who can say any fairer than that? Keeps you more secure than Cristhian Mosquera does on a night out in the San Siro. Right, let's go to part 2. Your questions and more right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show where we're going to be jumping into the chat box and tackling some of your questions. So if indeed you've got any questions that you would like to ask, now is the time to get them into the chat for the next 10 minutes or so. Let's go to Libox. This is Tom. You need to rewatch the game. Although it didn't reflect with goals and assists, he took up a lot of dangerous positions. He was dynamic. Eze was good. Well, it's interesting you say that because a lot of people in the chat box seem to agree with me that he wasn't particularly good. So I was kind of keeping an eye on the chat box when we were talking about Eze, and it seems that a lot of people seem to agree that he didn't have the best game. Yes, he was taking up some dangerous positions, but I'm not sure that we got the risk-reward payoff. Yeah, I mean, Alex says Eza could have done so much more in that game. The midfield was very, very open. Temi does suggest, of course, as rightly we already touched upon, as he helped set up the first goal. He didn't set up the first goal. He was involved in the build-up. Lewis-Skelly has had more involvement in that, and then Timber and then Jesus, of course. Calvin says Eza wasn't good. Let's be real. And Nifty says Ødegaard would have loved having as much space in that game as Eza did as well. And I do tend to agree. Ødegaard tends to play better when he's got kind of more of a Marino Zubimendi alongside him. But yeah, look, I don't think I need to rewatch. I rewatch every game, but I don't think the rewatch is going to tell me anything different. I wasn't doing the live blog, so it's when I don't do the live blog, I'm just doing the match report. I get to watch more than I ever do. So yeah, I don't think so. Let's go. A lot of you are liking the NordVPN stuff. Chris says, when Eza is in the team, our play is more fluid and we score more goals. Irrespective of his performance, there was someone in the chat last week who made this point, but everyone shouted him down. I mean, is that true? Do we score more goals with Eza in it? What? I don't know if the numbers back up that point. I don't know. If you've got the numbers, please do let me know. But I don't know if that's true. What I do know is that we have won every single game bar. We've only lost one game, I think, when Ødegaard starts. So yeah, look, I mean, it's a pretty darn good record that we've got this season when he starts games. Israel Bele says, Skelly was good, but I would not play him against United. He's been getting cooked by speed and Man United pace and transition. I mean, Inter had a lot of speed. He dealt with it really well. He is making me consider him against United, definitely. Mike says, Tom, don't you think playing Saka and Zubimendi the whole game was a bit strange, given the importance? We could definitely argue that, Martin. You could definitely argue it was a bit strange. Gabriel says, do you think Eza is struggling on the left, not having the overlapping players like he had in the system at Palace? Would he look stronger if an Nkapie started? Potentially. We haven't been able to see it, so yeah, we don't really know as of yet. Alex says, does it feel like we play much better and more confidence when the pressure is off, or was it because Inter are pushing players forward? I think we play better in Europe because European football is more open. Premier League tends to be a lot more restrictive and closed, and it's quite atrocious, isn't it? Like the way in which the Premier League is, but European football seems to be more open. So the Champions League kind of suits how Arsenal play, and it suits Arsenal a lot more. Political Jungle says also Eza lost the ball when it was passed to him more times than any player in the game. Kobe says, I think we also need to highlight the fact that these European sides aren't playing haram like these other sides do in the Prem. It was so refreshing. I guess this is the worst Champions League also. Yeah, it's the classic line, isn't it? Worst Premier League. Are we back? I think we're back. Sorry about that. I think we lost internet connection briefly. I've just gone onto my hotspot, hoping that that's fixed the problem. Gary says, Eza lost the ball 2 times. I can remember where we countered. And there was the result of a few times that we had sustained pressure on our defence as well. Yeah, no, I don't think we need to do it to death now. And you know, I'm sure that you're not doing it to death. You're just kind of like putting the comments in there. But yeah. I think this game was a great. I think this game was a great opportunity to see those people that are kind of just like anti-Martin and very pro-Eza. Like, you tend to see these moments where a player doesn't have a great game, but there's a desperation to kind of defend the performance, even though, like, from my point of view, Ødegaard was our worst player against Nottingham Forest. Like, it's about being objective. You might want Eza to start, but if he has a bad game, you need to You need to do it. Tess says, these things are happening to a lot of streamers on YouTube. I mean, to be fair, it's nothing to do with YouTube. I'm in a hotel with dodgy Wi-Fi, so it's not a YouTube thing this time. So Nicholas says, I don't understand our consistent need to second-guess team selection, especially when we rotated a bit and won away in the Champions League in a game that our opponent needed it so much more than we did. Take the win and smile. Political Junkie says, do you think Jesus benefited from a more open Champions League game? Will he be as effective against Man United? To be honest, his goals came from kind of poachers' moments, though, didn't it? Set piece, second goal, first goal, well worked. And he just kind of gets on the end of that timber shot. So I don't know if it's a case of he scored twice because it's more open. In fact, he scored kind of in the tightest spaced opportunities during the entire game. Coyote says, Tom, I'm having a problem with this discourse. Why are we pitting Eze against Ødegaard? We were in shambles last season when Ødegaard was injured and that 10 role was lacking. We should celebrate. Well, no, I think obviously we need to be objective. We need to say if Eze had the least encouraging performance of all the players on the field, that we need to talk about it. We're not going to hide away. We didn't hide away from saying Ødegaard was the worst player against Nottingham Forest. So equally, we're not going to do that. Similar things happen in the game yesterday. D says, Eze didn't play as bad as being suggested, although granted not his best game. Please bear in mind the amount of minutes that he has played recently. Ødegaard was poor versus Forest, but got rested last night. And he's going to come back into the team against not Manchester United and should do. You know, I think for being honest, he should do. But yeah, look, I don't think that I'm saying he was bad as before. I think saying he's bad is wrong. I think just saying he was just not as effective as we would have hoped that he would have been. Mike says Martin runs and has lost form. Eze is not much better, but he's more spontaneous. And this is the thing. This is what I'm talking about with like trade-offs of risk versus reward. Is it worth sometimes being a little bit riskier and surrendering our domination a bit more? But again, also, you have to think about the context of the game. It's really hard because, you know, European games are more open. If Ødegaard was playing in this game, I think Ødegaard would have had a great game based upon the scenario that we saw last night and based upon what we know of him. So, yeah, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult to judge things. AFC Till I Die says, did you see Haaland's interview after the City match? It seems like there are 115 problems of causing trouble in the City camp. Smash that like button. I haven't seen it, so no. But please feel free to send it to me because I'd love to watch it. Isoa says Esposito was great for Inter in his cameo, future striker. So Esposito is someone I've been aware of for a little while, only because when I was doing some stuff for like working with a couple of Italian journalists a couple of years ago, they were talking about him being the next guy basically coming through. He spent a couple of seasons now on loan and he's come through this Inter Academy and he looks a proper kind of proud presence, doesn't he? There's real stature to him. So one to keep an eye on. Was quite impressed with him. Fuad says, I know he's trying to be careful with Kaya, but is there something more going on? He's just being careful with Kaya. But I think he should be playing him more. But yeah, hopefully we see some more minutes because we need him to play. We need him to get minutes. And I was ashamed that he didn't come on yesterday. Did come on against Chelsea, did come on against Portsmouth, but we need to see more. D says Eze are definitely not as effective as we would have liked, but this is likely down to the play time recently. Going into a game versus the Italian league defenders probably did him no favors. I think D, and I'm being very blunt here, you are giving him as much of the benefit of the doubt as you possibly can, which you haven't done for the likes of Ødegaard, obviously. So a little bit of balance is probably needed. I think that this was a great opportunity for us. I mean, look at Mosquera. Look at Mosquera. Look at Lewis-Skelly. Like, opportunities given, opportunities taken. They've not played many minutes at all. Mosquera's been out. Lewis-Skelly's been sidelined so much. He's been pretty poor. They come in and they're fantastic. It's like this thing with Gyökeres, like people saying that Gyökeres needs time, give him an opportunity to adapt. Zubimendi's come in and he's been one of our best players. So you've got to keep the energy the same. You've got to keep the energy for the same players. Liam says, how does Ødegaard deserve to start on Sunday? The reason being is the player that came in to take the opportunity to play instead of him didn't take the opportunity. So you stick with the player that started previously, and obviously he's fully rested, so that's more of a benefit as well. Yeah, he definitely, maybe it's not deserves to start, he just should start on Sunday rather, not Saturday. Jeffrey says, we don't play boring football, it's more to do with the destructive football that we face from our opponents in the Premier League. Ruben says, not a question, but I've been saying for ages that now Gyökeres as a battering ram off the bench is a solution, especially once Havertz returns to start. Do think that there is something in that, definitely. Not many more questions before we wrap up. Jabu says, I feel like we're using Odegaard as a scapegoat. Just scapegoat, not a scapegoat. Scapegoat. Don't play a low block against Arsenal compared to teams in the Premier League as well. Well, I get that, but he has been poor the last couple of weeks. But equally, when he came back, 3 goal contributions in 3 games. But I feel like the people that are saying that he absolutely needs to be dropped didn't give him his flowers when he deserved them in those games. So, swings and roundabouts. Aoife says it's not about being elite. You just have to be locked in when we don't have the ball. Mark says, with Man United coming up on Sunday, is it tempting to take too much of their win over City? The Butterglint results suggest that Man United's win was more about how poor City are than how good United are. It's a bit of both. We need to be wary of United. We need to be conscious of who they are. They've got a point to prove. They've got momentum. They've got form. They're encouraged. We need to be on it. We need to be on it. It is really as simple as that. Right. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. I'll be trying to drop that Milan matchday vlog for you over on my Instagram page in a little bit. So look out for that at Tom Canton Media over on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for bearing with the connectivity, audio, video being different while I'm away in Milan. Back in my usual surroundings tomorrow morning. So I'll check in with you all tomorrow. We'll be reacting to all of the Champions League games, all of the Champions League results, and talking a bit more about that Ethan Nwaneri situation, of course, as well, as he is set to join Marseille now on loan. So we'll talk about that as well a lot more in tomorrow morning's show. Stay safe, stay well. If you're traveling back from Italy, safe travels. And as always, up the Arsenal.